Okay, so next up we're going to be looking at the Sanctuary of Apollo. This is an aerial view of the Sanctuary of Apollo, where we're going to talk about one particular structure inside of it. And this is in Delphi, Greece. And this is the restored view of the Symphyian Treasury, which is at the Sanctuary of Apollo in Delphi, Greece. It's from 530 BCE. And it was erected by the citizens in the Sanctuary of Apollo at Delphi. The citizens of Symphnos, basically. That's why it's called the Symphyian Treasury. So Greek treasuries are small buildings used by individual city-states to store votive offerings. And this treasury is at the Sanctuary of Apollo at Delphi, and it's much like a temple, but it does not have columns all the way around it, as you can see just in the front. And this is definitely an Ionic order structure. It's made in the Ionic style, and you can tell by looking at the columns, which are women figures called caryatids, and only the Ionic order used caryatids, which is they basically replace the column with a figure of a woman. And it's also very decorative. It doesn't have the scroll capitals, but the fact that there's a caryatid makes it Ionic in order. And they do resemble the Korai sculptures that we looked at earlier, and they appear in Ionian chittons, which is a type of dress that was popular during the time. And they're rather generic. They're not meant to be portraits of individuals. They probably represent elite women who are paying homage to a deity. So we'll take a look at some of the details of the friezes from this treasury, the Symphyian Treasury. So this is a gigantamachy detail on the north frieze. So it's a continuous sculpted frieze, which is an Ionic feature. Doric orders the frieze is actually broken up into small pieces of metopes and triglyphs, I believe. This is just one continuous frieze, and it has the theme of gigantomachy, and it's a close-up of the north frieze we can see here. And Apollo and Artemis pursue a fleeing giant at the center. So I believe it's here. And then behind them, the lion is pulling down a chariot and is biting a giant's midsection. And it was once richly painted, and it used to have metal weapons in the hands of some of the figures. There were little holes where weapons would be held. Most of those are gone now. So it was very elaborate and detailed. And gigantamachy is, you're going to be seeing this a lot in Greek art. It's, going to keep coming up over and over again. Okay, we'll keep going. So vase painting. So the Athenians end up taking over the export market for fine painted ceramics from the Corinthians. So we looked at Corinthian pottery earlier and how popular that was, but then the Athenian potters began to take over during this time, and during the mid-6th century BCE, basically. And we'll talk about some pottery now. So Cleitius and Ergotimos, this is the François vase. It's an Athenian black figure volute crater from Chiusui, Italy, 570 BCE. It's 2 feet 2 inches tall. So it is a crater with kind of like a little scroll-shaped handles on either side. And it was found in an Etruscan tomb. And that scroll-shaped handle is kind of a new form. And the signature of the painter and the potter appear amongst more than 200 figures. So there's a lot of figures on this piece, but Cleitius and Ergotimos are the potter and the painter. And we'll take a look at the detail, the centauromachy, which is similar to gigantomachy, but it's centaur monkey. And so a centaur is, half horse, half man. And it's got the same type of symbolism to it. The Greeks always are typically winning, but they're fighting centaurs or giants, and it's just the symbolizing of Greek superiority over other barbaric cultures, basically. There's different registers on this piece. Many of the registers depict scenes from mythology, and this is definitely one of the most prominent scenes. Is a battle between the Greeks and the centaurs, which is centaur monkey. The myth tells the story of a wedding gone wrong. The centaurs basically get drunk. They try to abduct the women and the children, and a battle ensues between the Greeks and the centaurs. And in the end, the Greeks always typically win, and in this case they do, and the centaurs are expelled to faraway lands. So it's kind of like the victory of the Greeks over the centaurs symbolizes, Greece over the rest of the world, basically. Take another look at a different pot here. Ezekias, Achilles and Ajax playing a dice game. And this is one of the finest pieces ever found. Ezekias is considered to be one of the most talented black figure vase painters ever in ancient Greece history, if not one of the best painters, maybe not even in this particular medium of black figure. He might just be the best painter ever, but he was so good that his style is widely copied by other Greeks of this time period. And this was found in an Etruscan tomb at Volsi, which is kind of a testimony to how popular his work was and how wide his work traveled, because it was made in, Athens, and it was found in Volsi. So it was definitely a ways away. And you can see he did away with the typical registers or horizontal bands. And he kind of put his figures inside of this large frame, almost right here on either side. To the left is Achilles, who's dressed in full armor. To the right is Ajax. They're playing a dice game, waiting for a battle to break out during the Trojan conflict. And Achilles is saying a word from his mouth, 4, and Ajax is calling out 3. So you'd have to get a little closer, but they actually are saying things. And their shields are ready, their spears are still in their hand, their shields are over here in their helmets, and they're ready to fight at any moment. And this is kind of a depiction of the calm before the storm, which is kind of the opposite of archaic scenes where the dramatic battle is actually taking place. So this calm before the storm is actually kind of an innovative use of narrative. Instead of showing the dramatic battle scene, it kind of just shows that tense, quiet moment before the conflict actually begins. And Ezekias is thought to have no equal in black figure painting, and he's very skilled at creating the intricate patterns in the cloaks, and his composition is really well thought out. And the heroes' backs kind of form this arch, which mimics the shape of the vessel itself, and then these spear points kind of lead your eye up into the handles, which continue, forth. And just the way he puts his composition together is very, their eyes and their arms and their hands lead you down into the game. So there's just a lot of good compositional things happening in this piece. And he's still using that innovation, or that same age-old convention, basically, of the profile head with the frontal eye. So he's not, doing anything different there, but it wasn't until the advent of red figure painting that the use of the age-old convention of the profile head and frontal eye begins to kind of fade away. The red figure technique developed out of a need for a medium with greater versatility. The black figure technique kind of limited you quite a bit, and you couldn't do very much with it, and you had to stick to a really strict formula with the black figure. So the red figure was developed as a way to kind of have more flexibility. And the Andochides painter is thought to have invented this technique, and he's typically an anonymous painter. He painted vases signed by the potter Andochides. So take a look at the Lysipides painter, Achilles and Ajax playing a dice game. So this is an important vase because it's One side is in black figure and then the other side is in red figure. And it's kind of a testimony to the experimentation that was going on during the time when red figure was first making its appearance. It's kind of a study done by potters to compare and contrast the two techniques of black figure and red figure. So like I said, one side is done in black figure, and then one side of the same vase is done in red figure. So this is amphora, made around 525 to 520 BCE, and it shows a familiar scene of Ajax and Achilles playing the dice game during the Trojan War. The red figure side is done by Antichides, and the other side, which is black figure, is done by Lysipides, who is thought to be a pupil of Exekius, who is one of the best painters ever. And neither capture the composition as well as Exekius, but we can see the experimentation of this new red figure medium. So this is the black figure side, and this is the red figure side, done by the Antichides painter. So red figure is basically the opposite of black figure. It was previously, what was previously black became red, and the artist used the same black glaze for the figures. But instead of using the glaze to create the figures in black, the painter outlined the figures and then colored the background in with black. So the figures are actually colored, the colors of the clay in red figure. And the background is now black, and with black figure, the artist incised details of the black figures with a sharp tool. With red figure, the details were made with a paintbrush. And so the paintbrush actually gave the painter much more flexibility. And that's why red figure was considered kind of superior. It allowed for the painter to vary the thickness of the paint, to build up the layers of the paint, to create different shades of brown and black. And the chromatic range was expanded using the red figure technique. And the Antichides painter is considered to be the inventor of this technique, but he was not the master of it. He did not take the medium as far as later artists will. And we'll take a look at one such artist that went by the name of Euphronios. And he is considered to be an early master of the red figure technique. So let me take a look and see how much time we still have. Okay, we're starting to run out of time, but okay, so Euphronios. I'm having a hard time with that one. So this shows Heracles and the giant and Teos wrestling, and it's a detail. And so the giant got his power from the earth, and in order to defeat him, Heracles had to pick him up and strangle him while he was no longer touching the ground. And in this piece, the figures are still on the ground, but it does appear that Heracles has the upper hand, and the giant's face is extremely animated, which is a far cry from earlier examples. So that's kind of a new thing that's happening, is this animation in the faces. And the giant is, he's gritting his teeth. And as you can see, Euphronios used the red figure technique very masterfully, and he diluted the glaze to produce the golden brown hue for the giant's hair. So he's using, that a lot. And, this barbarian, he has messy hair, but the Greek guy has perfect curls, obviously, right? Because the Greeks are perfect. And he also used the thin glaze to show the musculature of both figures. So the crater is exceptional for this reason. It is one of the first times that an artist rejects the age-old convention of mixing profile and frontal views. And the artist is actually trying to show these figures how they look and how they occupy space. So he's depicting them how they would have been seen in real life. He's showing movement and emotion. And this is something that's not common at all up until this point. And he's really trying to show these figures in 3D space. And it's a really revolutionary concept at this point in time. And I think maybe I'll just stop here and continue on in the next video. So this is a really important piece because it's showing, realistic views of the human body and how it's occupying and from every angle. So this is a really important piece